The Sweet 16 kicks off in just hours, minutes, moments. And I've got Cameron Ruby here to talk about why the Pac-12 is doing something historic in its final season, the infamous region of doom, and much more. The Locked On Women's Basketball Podcast. It starts right now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hello, welcome. You are locked onto women's basketball. I am usually your Friday host, Jackie Powell, and I cover the New York Liberty at the Next, and I've covered women's basketball nationally at many other places. We want to thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by everyone at the Next, including myself and Cameron. A place where we cover women's basketball all the time, and we tell the stories that need to be told every day. So just so y'all know, we have 9 of our colleagues and staffers out in both Albany and Portland combined this weekend. I believe it's 6 in Albany, 3 in Portland. So please subscribe now to help the staff at the Next that works oh so hard to bring you this coverage that matters oh so much. That is $9 a month, $72 per year. Find us at thenexthoops.com and subscribe. And remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. Today's episode is brought to you all by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, dear listeners, last time we were together, I had bracketologist Megan Gower on, and we went through what to expect on Selection Sunday, in addition to a peek inside how Megan does her bracketology. But now, 2 weeks later, we are in the thick of the NCAA tournament, with the Sweet 16 tipping off oh so soon. And Cameron and I are going to chat all things Sweet 16. So in segment 1, as I teased before, we're going to talk about the Pac-12's dominance in the field that remains. It's pretty wild. We'll get to it. In segment 2, we're going to cover that highly anticipated Albany 2 region of doom. I know I'm speaking about it like it's spooky, and it is. And then to wrap things up in segment 3, we'll give our Elite 8 predictions, and we'll cover the field that's non-Pac-12 or not Region of Doom related. So, of course, that means UConn Duke, South Carolina, who is the team to beat against Indiana, and Texas against mid-major Gonzaga. So, okay, Cameron, first of all, thank you for being here. I want to start with the Pac-12. There are 5 Pac-12 teams in this Sweet 16 in Stanford, USC, Oregon State, Colorado, and UCLA. What is so significant about this?
Excuse me. I just think it's poetic. I mean, it's the final year of the Pac-12. We're seeing one of the best years in history. I think Corey Close a few games ago mentioned that, for a while she called it, I think, Stanford and the 11 Dwarves, but the parody is just out of control. And it's been all season long. It's not news to any of the coaches or players that have been doing this all year. But I think that, there's something to be said about a team that hasn't gotten to play on national networks all year long, getting to now do that and show everybody how good they are. And I think that's been a conversation that's happened a lot, is that people didn't even really know how good this league was. I mean, we've got five out of 16, and I think it's poetic. I think it's cool. I think it's, giving nostalgia, but it's definitely awesome.
Yes, I did a calculation. 5 out of 16 is around 31%. And so, Cameron, I have another question for you. Can you tell me the last time a conference had 5 teams in the Sweet 16 and which conference it was?
I can because it was the Pac-12 and it was 2019. I think it was Stanford. I know it was Oregon State, Arizona State, Oregon, and UCLA, but that was Oregon State and sort of that fun team that had Michaela Pivic and Destiny Slocum and Aaliyah Goodman. And I think she's now on staff training up kind of the next generation of Oregon State guards, which is paying off and is pretty awesome.
Absolutely. So the point we're trying to hammer home here is that the Pac-12 has dominated in its last NCAA tournament ever. And so the question I now have for us to break down here is, how far will they all go? So let's start with the Stanford Cardinal. How far do you think they're going to go? And what type of shift have you seen in them year over year? Because I just have like a new vibes feeling with them. The vibes feel better this year.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the chemistry is really strong. And I think it really starts with like Cameron Brink and Kiki Uriaf. And I think they just have like this very obvious love for each other. They clearly love playing together. They're kind of each other's ultimate hype woman. I think you've seen it when it's hard, like when Cam has had like her 2 worst games of the season. I say that with one of them being when she was not playing at all and she was sick, but that's been probably Kiki's 2 highest scoring games of the year, and no one has been louder on the bench for her than Cameron Brink. So I think something to be said about 2 players playing a similar position, understand each other's role really well, and are able to kind of not only build off of each other, but be each other's like ultimate cheerleader. And I do think the chemistry just seems a little bit stronger. The rushing off the bench to support each other and all of that stuff is a little more obvious. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what to attribute it to, but I do agree with you that I think the chemistry and overall kind of demeanor and enthusiasm of the team does seem like it's on a different level.
So how far do they go? I mean, I've got the bracket pulled up here on a second screen.
Yeah.
They play NC State, obviously. Later tonight.
I think that's a tough matchup for them. I think in general, like long scoring guards have been kind of their biggest challenge. We saw what happened with Juju and 51 points in Maples. I think, they have a hard time with that matchup because that's kind of their least experienced spot on the floor in terms of defense. Elena Bozgana has been starting all year for them, and she's doing a good job, and she's providing that spark a lot of the time. But I think that is the toughest matchup for them. So I think somebody like Booker on Texas also going to be a pretty big challenge. Talana Lapolo and Hannah Jump are kind of, the more experienced guards on the team, and I think Madison Booker just has a little more strength and a little more height than either of them. And I think that one's going to be tough, but I have them beating Texas. We'll see what happens. I watch a lot of Pac-12 basketball, so I have to do that one, but it's going to be interesting for sure.
And you have them beating NC State. I mean, I think it comes down to,
we got to get past that first, I guess.
Yeah. People talk about the best player on the floor making a difference in some of these one and done matchups. And in a lot of them, that is going to be Cameron Brink. I know, obviously, that you have potentially Madison Booker. You have NC State star in, oh my goodness. Sanaya Rivers. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But
I matchup also for them, I think. So
I still contend that Cam is still the best player on the floor. But anyway, okay. Juju and the Nerds, how far do they go? Does Nikki Collin and Baylor do something funky to scheme against them?
I think Baylor can beat anybody. I think they're kind of an interesting team, but I also think they can lose to anybody. I think they're kind of one of those teams. I think USC is playing their best basketball right now, but I also think Baylor is. So I think Baylor has a ton of tenacity, a ton of speed. And I also just think beating Virginia Tech at home in front of that crowd has to give them a huge amount of momentum. I think, yes, there's momentum coming off a home win for USC, but coming off a road win like that has to just feel incredible right now, taking out a host. So I think they have a bunch of weapons. I think they played great last game. I think anyone can win that one. But I think I have USC. I mean, like I said, I'm like riding pretty hard for the Pac-12 right now. So I have USC in that one, but I do think that Baylor could take them out.
I couldn't agree more on that front. Obviously, there is not a heavy post presence on USC, and I think Baylor does well when that happens because they are small as well. I think obviously Liz Kitley not being available, that helped Baylor a lot. But anyway, before we go to our first break, I just want the listeners to understand how much depth Oregon State has and how they challenge Notre Dame. And that is kicking off very soon, 2:30 Eastern.
I think that's sort of the huge key, right? Is like Notre Dame is doing something incredible, but they're doing it with 7 people. And Oregon State has 12 players that play more than 7 minutes. So I think Notre Dame's lost. I mean, we don't need to talk about who they've lost. It's depressing and unfortunate, and we feel for them. But Kylie Watson most recently. And so I think Reagan Beers is going to be a really tough matchup for them. She's a tough matchup for anybody. But, I think especially for a team that's lost some of that post play, I really like Donovan Hunter on Oregon State. I think it's going to be really fun to watch her guard Hannah Hidalgo. But, I think the post and the depth is probably what's going to decide it there. And I apologize for my voice.
No worries at all. So coming up, we are going to get into the highly anticipated Albany 2 region. It's what some people are calling the region of death. I like to call it the region of doom because it sort of reminds me of like the League of Doom back in like the Super Friends era and superheroes, but that's just me. But first, before we talk about the region of doom, I would like to talk to you all about our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thank you, eBay Motors. We appreciate that. Now, before we get on to the region of doom, I do have to say, so obviously you all are going to be watching ESPN on your TV all day because it is the beginning of the Sweet 16. And do you have to turn down that volume with all the shouting? I mean, it can be quite loud. So make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without some of the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Here we go, Cameron. It's the region of doom. So let's remind listeners, why exactly is Albany 2 being called the region of doom?
I mean, anytime you have a national championship matchup in a regional, it's going to be pretty scary. So I think, not to mention a national championship that they didn't lose their people. They didn't lose their stars. It's not like we have national championship teams that lost scoring power starters. These are the national championship teams that played last year. So I think either of these teams could have been 1 seeds, depending on their schedule being a little different or things shaking out different ways, but they have the talent for it. And they're playing like it now. So this is tough.
And you have UCLA in there, which,
right.
You have seen a lot of, which brings me to this first. So there are 2 Region of Doom matchups here. It's Iowa versus Colorado and LSU versus UCLA. So let's discuss Iowa, Colorado first, and then we will get into UCLA versus LSU, which that is the one I am most looking forward to. I think it could be potentially the new game of the tournament. Right now, that is Stanford, Iowa State, that overtime thriller, but this has the potential to really be a memorable matchup. But anyway, Iowa versus Colorado. So what I want to know is, what exactly are the keys for both teams, and what makes this difficult for both teams?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting matchup, and it's actually been kind of hard for me to picture it. I don't know how to say that better, but I think Iowa, both these teams have an incredible motor behind them. So Jalen Sherrod, I think, is one of the most tenacious defenders in the country. I think she's probably one of the players I wish had a little more national recognition, just because I think she's doing an incredible thing, and she's been doing it for a while. But
let me interrupt. Just say on Jalen Sherrod, she is someone who talent evaluators around the WNBA believe could be a draft sleeper. So this is someone who has some pro potential. But I'll let
for sure. No, I agree. I think Caitlin is taller than she is. Caitlin has a little bit of height on her, but I think Kendall Wetta and Jalen Sherrod are sort of this incredible defensive duo for Colorado, and I think they're going to put a bunch of pressure on Iowa. We know Iowa can be dangerous in transition, especially when Caitlin finds her pull up and all this good stuff. But I think the key for Colorado is probably going to be just to slow them down, add defensive pressure early and often. You're never going to keep the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands, but you need to try. And I think taking care of the basketball, controlling the pace as much as possible is what Colorado needs to do. And they also need their posts to remain a dual threat. They can't have Quay Miller and Vonleh getting in foul trouble early or anything like that. They need to, keep their team on the floor and play really, really lockdown defense.
I also happen to think that part of what I think Colorado should keep in mind, and I think they actually said this out loud, the idea is you want Caitlin Clark to have to do more than she should. So if you are defending her teammates and making it very hard for her to find them in spots, she is going to just try to take over herself. And sometimes that leads to less efficient shot selection. That leads to those threes that are tough and don't go in. So I think, and they were like, oh, yes, we want to get inside her head. I mean, that's not something you tell the media before.
Just keep that in the locker room. Yeah.
So to be quite honest,
you're saying it, but you just don't need to say it out loud,
I think when you look, and I've heard this stat, when Iowa wins games, Caitlin scores around 26 points. When she loses, she scores over 30. And I think that is just something to keep in mind. If you can really lock down on Hannah Stolke and make her uncomfortable, I think that's going to help them too.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that if anyone can frustrate a player on offense, it might be Jalen Sherrod. So I've watched her frustrate people all season long, and I think this is going to be really fun.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, so now the matchup that I'm probably overhyping, this LSU versus...
I don't think you are.
No?
I hope not.
So, okay, what are the keys for both teams? Because I have to say, and this is what I'm thinking, their styles are pretty similar. So what has to happen for each side to come out victorious here?
Yeah, I think their styles are really similar, but their player styles are also individually really different, and it's kind of like a weird dynamic. I think that LSU has shown that they need to stay composed. I think, and that some teams are just like highly emotionally charged, and I think that can serve them really well. But it can also hurt them. We saw, Haley Van Lith clearly got frustrated last game and had to spend some time on the bench. I think that UCLA has a level of composure that's really interesting to watch. I was at the Creighton game earlier this week, and they didn't look flustered. Like at no point was anyone yelling at each other. It was just like very, okay, we're gonna come back from this. And they definitely were frustrated. I mean, shots weren't falling, and Creighton was making everything in stretches. But during sort of that comeback, they just really seemed calm. So I think UCLA, again, similar to Colorado, probably just needs to find a way to control the tempo, take care of the basketball. I think LSU gets to the free throw line a lot. So finding ways to not foul, to remain composed, and to stay on the floor.
I'm just so fascinated by the post matchups. I mean, is Lauren Betts going to prove something to us on a national stage about her ability to play against more physical posts? Is Angel Reese going to prove something to WNBA talent evaluators? Will Anise Morrow continue to show people, oh my gosh, she could be a very good WNBA player? So I'm wondering about those dynamics, but then part of me is saying it will be the guard play that determines who wins this, because essentially you could have those post players cancel each other out. And if Flau'jae Johnson goes off like she has been, or if Kiki Rice continues making open shots, and if you have Charisma Osborne making shots, I think it's got to be the guard play that determines which way this one goes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think Lauren Betts and Angel Reese are just totally opposite post players, but I think this is an opportunity, like you said, for Angel Reese. Like, she's playing against a 6'7" post. If there was a time to show WNBA scouts that you belong there, it's now. But I think on behalf of Lauren, I think people have been wanting her to be more aggressive all year long. And so this is opportunity for her too, to, kind of show what she's made of a little bit. Angel Reese plays gritty. She gets rebounds. She puts the ball back in the hoop. Lauren Betts wants to catch the ball, do a little move, and, go back to the basket, post move, or get a lob. So if they can keep the ball away from her by being physical, I think their game plan is probably going to be pretty similar to how they played Camila Cardoso. Then we're going to see, I think you're right, that how the guards can open up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Lauren Betts happens to be more proficient offensively than Camila Cardoso, but that makes a ton of sense schematically.
Yeah, so Camila Cardoso kicks it back out though, and is dangerous in that way. So I imagine that the wanting to keep the ball away from them will probably be pretty similar.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, WNBA talent evaluators are going to be looking at Charisma Osborne as well. They see her as defensively pro ready, but the offense has
Yeah.
been a question. She's one of those players who evaluators believe can do many different things, but she isn't great at one of those things, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of compare
Yeah.
her, and these two players are completely different, but I compare her to Dorka Juhas in that Dorka could do
See
a
it.
little bit of everything, but
Yeah.
she wasn't like the best at some of those things. And so versatility is very appealing at the next level. So that's Charisma Osborne has something to show. And I'll be really interested in seeing how she shows it after, and you were there, some shaky
Yeah.
offensive performances.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and I like the comparison. I think the only thing is like I found it to feel really hopeful for UCLA that she had this kind of really rough offensive night, stayed on the floor, played defense, didn't put her head down, and found scoring in other ways. So I think I totally agree with you. I think that the sophomore talent on this team is insane. And yeah, I do think this is going to be really fun. I don't think you're overhyping it. I think it's going to be really fun.
Let's hope I'm not overhyped. But anyway, so coming up, in our final segment, we're going to get into some just more predictions. We're going to speed it up. We're going to do a little bit of a lightning round-ish type of thing with some of these other matchups. But first, I want to tell y'all all about our friends at Nissan. So are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. So the 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Its class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And Nissan's lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capacity. With over 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue and Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Now, I also want to talk to y'all about Amazon Fire TV. So what I love about Fire TV is how it keeps almost everything that you love about entertainment in one place. When streaming is the name of the game, you need to have Amazon Fire TV and its Fire Stick. I mean, I rely on just that one remote. It is so convenient. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as that Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies, TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, the Sweet 16, and women's college basketball, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on things like March Madness, MNBA, WNBA. You can even have League Pass as an app on Fire TV. It's amazing. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. Learn more. Visit www.amazon.com/lockedon Fire TV. And we are back with our final segment, a bit of a lightning round here. So we've talked about the Pac-12 and its dominance in this tournament in segment 1. We've talked about the region of doom in segment 2. So what's left? Okay, undefeated South Carolina. We have to talk about them. They are playing Indiana. Cameron, what is your prediction?
I go South Carolina. Yeah. They're so deep.
I know.
I just
Here's what I'll add.
I don't even know what to say about South Carolina at this point. Like, the depth is just everything.
I think Indiana's going to make it close. I do. I do not think this is the blowout that we saw. I think Indiana has a unique offensive firepower that can keep up. Meanwhile, Cardoso is really good defensively, so who knows what happens to Mackenzie Holmes. But the key here is if you make South Carolina beat themselves, you have a chance.
Yeah, I think I'm worried the most about rebounding for Indiana.
Yes.
Despite being 26-5, I think they out rebounded their opponents only by like 3, which for a team with that good of a record and beating some teams the way that they did is not a lot. So I don't know. I think I worry about them on the boards, but I hope you're right. I hope we get another good one.
Okay, now Texas versus Gonzaga. What is your prediction there?
I'm really high on Madison Booker right now. I think she's so fun to watch, but I think Gonzaga is if they can shoot the ball the way they did against Utah. I don't know. I think I go Texas because I think Texas can play better defense on the perimeter than Utah did, and stop some of that bleeding. But we'll see.
Madison Booker is probably the best player on the floor, so I agree. But I also think it's going to be close.
Yeah. I think this one will be close if Gonzaga can keep shooting. Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, UConn versus Duke. And before I give you the baton, the talking stick here, I just have to say, I feel like this game is going to be one of those old Kurt Miller muck it up games where Duke is just going to try to muck it up as much as they can. But
yeah.
Cameron, what are your thoughts?
I feel so boring. I think I'm going to scratch here, but I think UConn. I mean, I think that UConn plays pretty basketball though, so I think you're right. Duke turns their opponents over. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it's 17 times a game. So I think that keeping UConn from doing what they want to do. I also think UConn is able to break a press pretty much better than anybody. So I don't think that traditional approach for Duke is going to work, but I do think slowing them down and making it ugly will benefit Duke.
Absolutely.
I go UConn though. I'm sorry. I'm so boring.
I mean, I'm boring too. I will go UConn because UConn has Paige Bueckers. That is the best player on the floor. And she has, I think there's just a fire in her where she remembers what it felt like and looked like when UConn was knocked out of the Sweet 16 last year. And that was because they could not break a press and they could not keep up with Ohio State's defense. My guess is Paige doesn't want that happening again.
I have a feeling you're right. I think Paige Bueckers is just playing unbelievable basketball right now. I don't know what you say to guard her. I think it's a totally different even approach than Caitlin Clark. And I think UConn takes this one, but I think if Duke can get them a little sloppy, that we'll have yet again another fun one to watch. So
you bet. So that is it. We ran through pretty much all of the matchups, but thank you so much for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. I want to give a huge thank you to Cameron Ruby for hopping on the show today. Where should people find your work, Cameron?
I'm at The Next, so you can find me there or on Twitter. And thank you, Jackie, for dealing with my voice this morning. It's allergy season in LA, so we're working through it, and we're just excited to spend a day on the couch tomorrow watching basketball.
You bet. And also remember that Locked On has launched its first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you. Tomorrow, join our scouting crew. You know who they are for another WNBA draft related episode. I mean, we're less than a month out. We're 2 weeks out from the draft. It's getting really close and quite exciting. But anyway, this has been Jackie Powell and
Cameron Ruby.
And we are signing off. Happy Sweet 16 and enjoy the basketball, everyone.
Ogumawale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.